Tuesday. So today's story is from a book called Four Corners, Tales from the British Isles, retold by Tom Knight. Now, you'll notice that it says retold and not written, and that's because the stories in this book are very old, and I went searching for some tales and I found these ones, and I've rewritten them. And that's okay. There's a long tradition of passing stories along in storytelling, and as they get passed along, they change, they morph, they grow, they shrink, they change shape. And that's something that you guys could do as well. So if there's an old story that you know, you could change it a little bit. So, for example, what would Rapunzel be like if it was set in a tower block in Dagenham? Or what would The Princess and the Frog be like if it was The Princess and the Pig and it was set on a farm in the Lake District? So you can change these things and retell them. In fact, there's a little bit at the end of this book in which there is a note from the author, so I'll read you that. My favourite thing about stories is that they can be passed on throughout time, like a gift from a magical place. The tales in this book are very old, and people have been telling them to each other for a long time. As time passes, the stories change with each new person that tells them. It's great to be a link in a story chain that might stretch all the way back to when giants walked the earth and piskies danced in the moonlight. So, the first story from this book is a story from Wales, and I can't do the accent because it would be offensive. And so here's the first story, and it's called King March's Ears, and it's from Wales. See, this is the British Isles, and at the eastern side of it is a country called Wales. So this is King March's Ears, a tale from Wales. A long time ago in Wales, in the palace of Castelmarch, there lived a king. His name was March ab Mercian, but everyone called him King March. King March was very rich, but he was also very generous. The cellars beneath the palace were stuffed with gold and jewels, and the king used his wealth to build ships and houses for his people. In return, his people loved him and worked hard. The fields were full of corn and the rivers were full of fish. Everyone in the kingdom was as happy as can be. Everyone except for King March. For the king had a terrible secret. He had been born with the ears of a horse. In order to hide his ears from everyone, the king never cut his hair and never took off his crown. The only person who knew the king's secret was the royal barber, Bifan. And here you can see King March with his long hair and his royal barber, Bifan. You must never tell anyone about my ears, said the king to Bifan. Otherwise, the people will laugh at me. They will think I'm a terrible king. Our beautiful kingdom will crumble with shame, and no one will be happy anymore. Now, Bifan the barber was a quiet, humble man, and King March felt sure that he could trust him. But having a secret can be a heavy burden. After many years of keeping the king's secret, Bifan became ill with worry. One day, Bifan was sitting on the beach with his wife, watching the sun set over the ocean. There they are, sitting on the beach, watching the sun set over the ocean. Anwen smiled at Bifan. How lucky we are to live in such a beautiful place and to have such a kind and generous king. But instead of replying, Bifan hid his face in his hands and burst into tears. I have a terrible secret, but I can't tell anyone, wailed Bifan. Not even you. Anwen thought for a moment. If you can't tell anyone, then perhaps you should share your secret with the earth. She will keep it safe for you, and you won't have to carry it anymore. Bifan agreed and rode out into the forest. After a day and a night of travelling, he came to rest at a river. Being sure that nobody was around for miles and miles, he whispered his secret to the reeds. King March has the ears of a horse. A soft wind blew, and the reed swayed gently. Straight away, Beefin felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He rode home to Anwen with a light and a happy heart. That summer, King March decided to hold a huge feast for his people at the palace. He called for the best piper in Wales to play at the feast. As the piper was riding to Castlemarch, he passed the river where Beefan had whispered his secret. "Those reeds will make a fine flute," he thought. So he jumped off his horse to cut a reed from the banks. That evening, at the feast, after everyone had eaten and drunk their fill, King March ordered the piper to play. But as the piper raised his new flute to his lips and blew, everyone was shocked to hear these words ringing out instead of a melody. "King March has the ears of a horse. King March has the ears of a horse." The piper flung the flute away as if it had bitten him. It rolled across the stone floor to the feet of Beefan the barber. Immediately, Beefan knew what had happened and dropped to his knees in shame before the king. "Forgive me, your highness," he sobbed. "I shared your secret with the earth." Gazing out at the shocked sea of faces, King March sadly took off his crown. Slowly, he pulled back his hair, revealing his huge, furry horse ears. But to the king's great surprise, there was a huge cheer. "Hooray for King March!" everyone shouted. "The kindest, bravest king of all, and with the finest ears we've ever seen. No other king has ears like his." All of a sudden, King March realised that his people didn't care what he looked like. They cared about what he did. He ordered Beefan to cut his hair that very evening. Over time, he became very proud of his horse's ears. Everyone in the kingdom grew even happier than before. There had truly never been a ruler like King March. And there's King March with his horse's ears. There you go. See you tomorrow.